Ara, welcome to DITL.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So every episode in DITL, we always start at the beginning of the day. And I'd love to hear about your wake up and morning routine and start there.
When I always hear these interviews and I hear moms like kind of say it as if the same thing happens every single day, I wonder what I'm doing wrong. But so I'll give you what I kind of happens every day and what I aspire to. So kind of truth. I have been because we've been doing this like musical chairs sleeping thing because me and my husband can't sleep together because he snores. I've been like sleeping with my 7-year-old for like the past 6 months because I don't have a bed to sleep in currently in our house. So I wake up around 5. And he's like also a really early wake up. And so we kind of get ready together. He kind of like brings his clothes upstairs. We brush teeth, get ready. But my morning does start with around like 5 a.m. I'm usually with the kids. I have an 18-month-old also. I get my 7-year-old gets ready. Then I start breakfast. Then we go wake up or get my 18-month-old Zen. He goes in his high chair, and then the three of us are kind of together from like 6 a.m. to like 6:40 a.m. And then my day starts, and then I usually go to work after either I take my son to school or I go to work.
And are you waking up at 5 on your own?
Yes.
Okay. That biological clock
has
the
my whole life.
circadian rhythm is
my whole life.
Yeah.
My dad's the same way, and now my 7-year-old's the same exact way.
And what about morning routines? You know, obviously you are building one of the most incredible health companies in the world right now. What do your morning routines consist of?
I would say that the things that if left to my own devices without 2 little humans, I would do in the morning, I have to do at night because my mornings are not, unfortunately, like especially with a child that wakes up so early, are not really like my own, no matter how much earlier I would wake up, which I'd probably have to wake up at like 4:15 to have that time. So a lot of the things, for example, reading and any meditation happens like before bed. And in the morning, it really is like focused on it's my quality time with my children for the most part. And so I really try and be like as present as possible. Food is a very important thing to me as you know, in like the world that I do and world I come from in terms of science and health. And so it's the presence with them in the morning and for the most part, getting breakfast and then of course lunch ready for my 7-year-old before he goes to school.
And what's on the breakfast menu?
Oh, I think this is where people will be like, we'll see how long I can get away with this. I know sometimes I say what I give my kids, and then people are like, oh God, I can't get my kid to even eat like a broccoli, but I don't think I'm going to get away with it forever. A lot of the time it's vegetables. A lot of the time just like sauteed with like some eggs or egg whites. That's like a big one. I think a lot of parents have like their recipes where they can like get a lot of fiber in, and mine is these oat banana spinach pancakes that I literally just throw bananas, like whole rolled oats and a lot of spinach and like a little bit of apple cider vinegar, baking soda, some cinnamon, and a couple eggs into a blender, and you can like make pancakes in like 1 minute, and that's like a very big staple. And then a lot of times it's just like oatmeal, and I put like a lot of flax, ginger, cinnamon. There's a lot of wild blueberries eaten in my as my 7-year-old calls them, polyphenols, because he's been taught kind of
he knows the lingo.
He knows the lingo. But really a lot of time it's like taking as many extra vegetables that we have, or a lot of times I'll take a lot of the extra vegetables that are like left over from the last couple of days and just chop them up and put them in like a thing of egg whites in muffin tins and just like bake them from like, I'll do that on the weekend, and then they just kind of have them cold.
I just did that over the weekend. I have a 9-month-old, and so
we're
in the solids, era right now. And so I made her these little like egg muffins with onions and broccoli and kind of just like basic to start. But it's so easy to have that like pre-made
Exactly.
thing just ready to go.
Yeah, and also it's a great way to not like throw out a lot of old
Yeah.
vegetables, which is kind of the way I like kind of think about it. And for the most part, I mean and my 18-month-old a little bit differently than my 7-year-old. There's some new thinking around like how you introduce solids to children. That's called it doesn't have a great name because it sounds kind of obvious, but it's called baby-led feeding.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of new research that's coming out, and a lot of the longitudinal studies are hitting now, really demonstrating that this way of introducing kids very early to giving them much more agency over food, even as early as 6 months when they're starting, is leading to better brain signaling, brain gut signaling around satiety. So like really knowing at an early age when you're satiated is like a really big thing, right? Some kids like just keep eating or they don't eat enough. And also just creating like healthier relationships between with food, which I think we know like a lot of kids kind of the whole like getting into power struggles around like food with kids as they grow up is so challenging. And then a lot of them just stop eating a lot of the good stuff because it became like this source of like a power struggle. And so there's some really interesting research happening, which I kind of had wished was there with my first
Mm-hmm.
child. Not that I did anything like wildly different, but I definitely introduced some things differently that I kind of see the difference in how they, how my 18-month-old is responding now versus like my 7-year-old.
And is breakfast then the same for the three of you?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't, there's no like pureed stuff
Yeah.
for the baby or anything like that. I really, and really wherever he can use like his fingers and really start to like control food going in is primarily the goal.
The pincer grasp.
The pincer,
Right.
palm, it starts off with the palmer and then goes to the pincer. Yeah.
What
Exactly.
the palmer is.
The palmer is like it's when they're a little younger. That's like more like in the 6-month range when they almost like you're making foods that are a bit more like French fry shaped, just because it's easier for them to grasp like more with the palm. And then obviously as they get older, like my 18-month-old can pick up, of course, like a pomegranate seed now one at a time, which of course wouldn't have been able to do at 6 months.
No one talks about the palmer grasp.
Yeah,
I feel like it always goes straight to the pincer.
straight. Yeah, there's a palmer grasp.
And when are you taking your seed? Like I have you,
Yes.
who is literally the creator, founder of this. So from your mouth to everyone to hear, like
Yes.
I was always told, take your seed in the morning before you've eaten. I'm curious in terms of your routine or just in general, like when is that happening?
So
And maybe I'm wrong.
So because I eat dinner so early, I take it at night.
Okay.
Because there's like a good amount of time to really kind of feel like you're on an emptier stomach. And it's also from a compliance perspective. I know that I would be more compliant if I do it like before bed. So I take it before bed. I would say that empty stomach is probably like we know from like testing that like the optimal state is an empty stomach. But I would say not in place of compliance, which is whenever and also some people are more sensitive and some people need, and also depending on what works for your lifestyle, like for people that are traveling a lot, it kind of depends. But for the most part, yes, empty stomach, which could be early morning or could be late at night, depending on what time you eat dinner or breakfast, or with food if you have to, and if it makes it more tolerable, because it's more important to take it than to not to take it. We just know that, for example, DSO1, which is our adult product, is more optimal in a fasted state. Whereas very interestingly, PDSO8, which is our kids product, is actually more optimized in a fed state, which is kind of interesting. And that has to do with the way the prebiotics work, and it has to do with the delivery method as well. Like one is a powder and one is a capsule. So
I don't want to fast forward your day because I'm so excited, but I feel like your getting to your nighttime.
Yeah, sure.
We are going to unlock so much. 7:30 rolls around. You are on your way into your office. You're at your office. Walk us through.
I would be at my office on a day that I don't do drop off for my son.
Okay. And what happens once you get to your office?
I mean, we're a fully remote, but also very international company. So 7:30 for me, I'm in Venice, California, and my co-founder is in Venice, Italy at the moment. And so, I walk into like a million. There's no like quiet morning, and then people start to wake up at 9 a.m. and like and like Slack kind of starts lighting up. It truly is kind of like always on, and so I think it actually is even more important to be so disciplined about like the order of events that you do things, because otherwise you can just get like immediately sucked into like the Slack verse or like the where I think most people spend their life, which is in the top 6 inches of their inbox. And so a lot of it is, I mean, I do have meetings that typically start at like 8 or 8:30, but I end up with a good half hour to really like kind of, I've already planned the day and my priority work the day before. So like, it's not really about sitting down to know what my priorities are, but it is my time for writing. I still do a tremendous amount of copywriting and just regular writing and ideation for a lot of the work that we do. We put out a tremendous amount of scientific communication. And so that's definitely when I can review like writing, I can write myself. And I often, so that's kind of like real, like more deeper work time. Even if it's only 30 minutes, but a dedicated 30 minutes sometimes is better than like a distracted 2 hours over the course, in the middle of the day. And then a lot of times, like a lot of our calls start typically on the earlier side with like East Coast or Europe.
And then would love to hear about the day at the office and working across, a remote team in the field that you're in. You're having a lot of very serious, life-changing conversations.
Yes.
And to condense that into 5-minute calls, 10-minute Zooms, like how does that all, how do you do it?
I sometimes think, so I live a very like schizophrenic life because we are a very a very unique company in that we are multiple companies in one. So we have really rigorous science and life science team, bioinformatics. So like we look in some ways like pure biotech company. If you were on some of my meetings talking about phase 2 trials for the FDA for like an HPV drug, like you would have no idea that we even have an Instagram. You would have no idea that we even have a team that like thinks about wild ideas for brand campaigns. There are other conversations then if you're in like, for example, Seed Labs, which is our environmental work. Just on my way here, was meeting with our lead scientist of the Two Frontiers project, who's like our primary partner. And we're probably by the time this comes out, we will have announced that we're starting like 6 more expeditions this year to discover like microbes that live in extreme environments that can be used and harnessed to remediate so many of the issues related to especially like methane and carbon and things caused by, human-induced climate change. Again, you would have no idea that we sell anything, that we make. No one would know about a green jar that everybody knows us for. No one would know anything. Then you get on a legal call to talk about like the future of your IP estate. Again, you'd be talking about like crazy future applications about like, precision probiotics, about like BMI and weight management in the future, coming out of like massive data sets that like, and like, again, nobody would even know that like you work with a lot of interesting influencers. And so that's like part of our world that's incredibly, academic, more life science kind of biotech. And then of course our environmental work. When you get to the commercial side, that's when you start to really like also start to think about, what is the translation of that science that's going to make its way to more humans. And so there's like product development meetings where we're talking about our future pipeline. A lot of work, for example, on the product that you take, we're always doing more clinical trials on that product to understand like what are the other ways that we can impact health using DS-01, just as an example. But then also future looking into all of our early work in skin microbiome, the gut-brain axis and mental health, vaginal microbiome and vaginal health, nutrition products, and thinking about, the ways and outside of even probiotics and prebiotics and postbiotics that we're looking at how to impact human health. So, that's like product. And then you end up in like crazy conversations with like artists and poets and some of the biggest luxury fashion brands in the world who like want to collaborate with us to make like a sweatshirt made from microbes. And that's kind of like the really exciting piece, which is what we kind of refer to as like SciComms, which is science communication, which is what are all the ways that we get to like Trojan horse science into pop culture and into the zeitgeist, and particularly bring microbes and the microbiome into like public discourse, into conversation. We've worked with so many interesting artists and like poets. We have a lot planned over the next year. And then I'll get on the phone with like Jizza's manager And like, Jizza like loves science. Like I'm a huge Wu-Tang fan from like back in high school.
Yeah.
And like they want to do like crazy things with you because they want to figure out like how to bring science to life and like a performance. And like how do you marry like spoken word and what Jizza does with like science and then music, and so that's like one of the most extraordinary parts of what I get to do, which is thinking about the ways that you take all of the science and outside of just your products, you make it matter.